Welcome to SLO Development for Librarians. If you are a school librarian setting an SLO, we hope this video will help you craft a student learning objective. At the end of the video, you will be able to distinguish characteristics of a school-wide SLO for a librarian, use 3 guiding questions to work through decision points, and complete all 8 sections of the New York State SLO template. Bear in mind that many of the decisions presented today will be made at the district level and will not require a decision by you personally. Nevertheless, locating the correct decision of the district based on your teaching assignment will be easier if you are able to use the guiding questions included in this video. If you have not done so already, please take this opportunity to print the SLO accompanying this video. We will be referring to it later. 3 questions should be considered throughout the development of an SLO. What do you teach? To whom? And what do those students need? This leads you to examine data, course rosters, and standards. In this case, the teacher's assignment is librarian. Librarians, particularly in elementary schools, often see all students at some point during the year. The contact may vary across grade levels, with upper grade levels often spending less time with a librarian as they focus on their core subject areas. There may be confusion regarding how to define their classes and possible assessments that would be appropriate to measure their effectiveness. There are 2 possible SLOs for librarians. The first option is librarian-specific. Our example here looks at a librarian in an elementary school who teaches all subjects in the school. You would begin with a 50% rule and select largest classes until 50% of students are covered. More specific information about this rule can be found in the guidance document. If the librarian teaches specific ELA content with a library focus, this is the appropriate SLO. If the librarian meets with 1st and 2nd graders regularly, perhaps twice a week, to work on their research and writing. Other grade levels meet with the librarian once a week. This represents 51% of enrollment. The librarian in this example is working directly with students in 2 particular grades to write research projects assigned by the classroom teacher using the Common Core writing standards as well as reading informational text. The classroom teacher would team with the librarian to assist in this project. They could work together, planning how the students will develop their reading and writing skills as they prepare their research projects. Clearly, the librarian can assist in the location and interpretation of appropriate resources, check the students' work, and guide their writing process. The assessment in this SLO must be regional, BOCES, or district developed. One advantage to this kind of approach is if carefully designed, the Common Core could be integrated easily to other common branch subjects such as science or social studies. Option 2 is a school-wide SLO. This may be a good option for educators who have contact with students that is broad across a number of grade levels or courses. The impact these teachers have on students may be more difficult to assess due to the limited contact time they have with specific groups or classes. However, librarians who encourage students to continue to read, research, and write about their understanding are encouraging the Common Core daily. Their impact is likely to be cumulative, with more impact on students over time. That is why the school-wide SLO may be an option districts wish to consider. The librarian's SLOs can be tied to the performance of students on state-provided assessments where applicable. If the state provides the mean growth percentile, that would be the outcome measure. If not, outcomes on other state-provided assessments will be used as the outcome measure. In the example SLO used during this video, the librarian's target and Heidi for their SLO is based on the outcome of the 4th and 5th grade ELA test scores and the resulting MGP. When you start writing your SLO, you should start with the standards. There are no separate standards for the teaching of library science, and librarians play different roles across schools. Some work with certain classes, making it easier to attribute responsibility for learning content. In this case, the librarian sees all of the students in the school on a weekly basis. Note that like the rest of faculty, librarians should be infusing the Common Core into the lessons that they do present. This is a model SLO for elementary school librarians who are using a school-wide measure. Please refer to your handy printout. I will be talking about it for the rest of the video. We're first going to look at the learning content. It is not a large leap to imagine that a librarian plays an important role in literacy. You'll note the inclusion of just 4th and 5th grade students because this makes up the largest population for this librarian. Because the impact is less direct, librarians are not responsible for ELA curriculum per se. This district decided that it made the most sense for this librarian to set an SLO that focused on the students with whom he or she spends the most time with over the course of the school year. In some districts, the decision as to which grades and subjects to include in a school-wide group or team SLO will occur at the school level. The 4th and 5th grade students are the ones for whom a state-provided growth measure will be calculated. This is the basis for the measure of this SLO outcome here. Now let's focus on the interval of instructional time. In this section, the focus is on improvement in student learning for this year. This is true regardless of how long a teacher has spent working with any group of students. Therefore, the present year will be the interval of instructional time. The only time it would be appropriate to have a different length of time listed here would be if the librarian had an SLO for a particular set of students, whom he or she only saw for a single semester, for instance. The next question is, to whom? You must also consider exactly who you will teach. This impacts how many SLOs you will write and for which courses. In this case, the librarian does not have to use a specific roster, as this is an SLO based on 2 grades of students. The librarian will use the list of all 4th and 5th grade students. No students may be excluded from this list. Now let's focus on population. Notice the librarian specifies the exact number of students relevant to this SLO. This is the number as of Bed's Day. Once students are identified, multiple sources of data should be consulted to determine the performance level of each individual student. Many sources of data can be consulted to build a case for why growth in ELA scores for 4th and 5th graders is an important priority for the work of this librarian. Now look at evidence. The data piece most relevant, however, is the scores from the prior year on the same test, the state assessment. Not only is this most closely aligned to the learning content for which the librarian will assume responsibility, but it is what the state will use to calculate the state-provided growth measure, which is to be used for any school-wide SLO. It's important to note that the previous year's results are the ones that matter for the pre-assessment. Let's take a look at the baseline. The school-wide SLO is the only type of SLO in which it is unnecessary to break out student scores individually. because the state-provided growth measure takes that into account. It will still be a good idea for the librarian to examine multiple sources of data about individual students, especially those with high needs and literacy, so that a specific plan can be formulated about how best to contribute to the success of the individual students who will impact the school scores. Note that the teacher is citing the results from 2012 in the SLO. These results, to be released in August, would be essential to understand where the school stands at the current time. The target, in the case of the school-wide SLO, will be set by the district. This is a substantial target, but one that the school is poised to meet. This is explained further in the rationale section below. The HIDE is also decided by the district. The rationale is particularly important for this type of SLO. Note that the librarian has created a strategy around aligning writing lessons with the Common Core and making sure that those lessons are going to the students who will contribute to the school score. Note also that information about the librarian's influential and long-standing role provides a better sense of why the students in this school who take a state assessment make sense as a priority focus. To summarize, 3 guiding questions led this teacher to consider each element of the New York SLO template. What do you teach, to whom, and what do your students need? Which in turn led to the examination of 3 bodies of resources: standards aligned to the teaching assignment, the roster to indicate the students for whom one is responsible, and various sources of data, including the state ELA test, which was most linked to the learning content for which the teacher will prioritize this year. In this instance, the Common Core is the best logical fit for the work of the librarian. There are 2 considerations. Many decisions may be made at the district level already, and if it's unclear what standards to consult or the teacher is responsible for many students across many grades and subjects, districts may wish to consider the school or BOCES-wide group or team measure approach. The school-wide approach is one of a number of options available to teachers outside of core subject areas. It is an approach that may be useful to teachers whose assignments either lead them to meet extremely large populations of students, as the librarian who sees all students in the school, or teachers whose population of students is transient due to frequent assignment changes. Example could be resource room teachers. I hope this information was helpful.